and welcome to IAS Origin. So today in this video, we will be talking about COP28, the Conference of Party of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Yes, UNFCCC is holding 28th Conference of Party. So today in detail, we will be talking about what the COP is and how it has evolved over time. Before starting on to our topic, I would like to tell you that you can enroll with IAS Origin for Prelims cum Mains program, where you'll get live classes, current affairs PDF, one-to-one mentorship session, unlimited recorded access, and a personalized strategy plan based on your needs. So, if we talk about the origin of UNFCCC, ये कैसे आया? Initially, as a development process was starting and the countries were becoming industrialized, it was noticed that this industrialization and development has led to deterioration of our environment, and there is a connection between development and environment in a negative sense. As a result, in 1992, Earth Summit was held, United Nations Conference on Environment and Develop, which was also called the Earth Summit. इसमें डेवलपमेंट को सस्टेनेबल तरीके से करने की कोशिश की गई थी. It was pledged that we should adopt more of environmental friendly methods. And as an outcome of this, in 1994, after 2 years, UNFCCC came into existence. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And इसी UNFCCC की time and again meeting होती है of all the members. And this same meeting is known as COP, Conference of Party. This is the highest decision-making body which meet at a particular place and they discuss all the agenda related to the climate change and what all actions have been taken, as well as what future actions can be taken. For example, it has been decided INDC, Intended Nationally Determined Contribution. अब हर एक कंट्री अपने गोल्स और एजेंडा सेट करती है which it will be pursuing in the near future based on its capability, which are known as INDC. ये सारी चीजें COP में डिसाइड होती हैं. The convention has near universal membership. All the members of the Earth Summit and the Paris Agreement are a part of this COP meeting. इसी COP meeting में the most famous 2015 Paris Agreement was signed. Yes, the Paris Agreement, जो कि एक landmark agreement कहलाता है climate change के terms में, was signed under the same UNFCCC meeting. In the Paris Agreement, it was realized that climate change इतना ज़्यादा हो रहा है, the temperatures are increasing at such a massive scale that it would make life impossible in the coming future years. As a result, it was decided that global temperature should not rise more than 2 degrees Celsius annually, and most preferably 1.5 degrees Celsius से कम रखना होगा. Then only we can have a sustainable living for future. So this was decided in the same COP meeting. And in the similar meetings, various actions have been taken, like the Kyoto Protocol on carbon dioxide control, Montreal Protocol and the Vienna Convention, which were taken on the ozone depletion. So all these various environmental friendly steps and agreements have been signed in these COP meetings. And this time it is a COP28, 28th meeting, which is being held in the United Arab Emirates. Earlier last year, it was held in Egypt. उससे भी पहले it was held in Glasgow. So every time a different country hosts these meetings. And the future meeting, it is expected that in 2028, India will be hosting. The meetings are held on a regional basis. For example, one specific area gets a chance, then the Asian, then African. In this way, various countries on a regional basis get a chance to host the meeting. For example, India in 2008 got a chance to host a meeting, and now it will be in 2028. What is the principle on which this is based? There is a principle known as CBDR, Common but Differentiated Responsibility. इसी पे ये सारी COP meetings based हैं. Now, when we talk about development, we cannot compare African countries with those of European countries. फ्रांस, इंग्लैंड, इन सारी कंट्रीज को अपन अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज से कंपेयर नहीं कर सकते, बिकॉज इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन बहुत 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 पहले आ गया था इन यूरोपियन कंट्रीज में, बट दीज अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज आर स्टिल डेवलपिंग. सो द इंडस्ट्रियलाइज्ड नेशन वर द रिस्पॉन्सिबल नेशन जिन्होंने मैक्सिमम कॉन्ट्रीब्यूट किया है व्हेन इट केम टू इंक्रीज इन टेम्परेचर एंड द पोल्यूशन. But after the coming of these meetings, sustainable development की बात आई है. We cannot say that African countries भी उतना ही emission cut down करें जितना European countries करते हैं, because they are not at all responsible for that much emission. Plus, they need to develop and it will take a huge time. As a result, CBDR का principle अपनाया गया. Common but differentiated responsibility. Common means all have a common goal of climate control, but responsibility is differed. European nations की ज़्यादा responsibility है. They will have to cut down emission more, and the African nations and the other developing nations have a lesser responsibility and the lesser liability because they have not contributed to all these things. So they will fulfill their targets at a later stage. इसी के तहत different countries को different groupings में रखा गया था, which are termed as NX1 countries, NX2 countries. For example, NX1 developed countries रहती हैं which need to cut down emission year only, and the developing countries, for example, in 2045 they will cut down emissions. So this way there is a timeline based on different capabilities and responsibility. So this is how UNFCCC has evolved over time. Now we will be talking in detail about the COP28. What all actions have been taken and what are the key highlights of the theme. Now here, for the first time, climate health nexus is taken into account. Development and environment were taken into account. Now it is realized with the climate change and environment, human health is also impacted. Various diseases, communicable tropical diseases, बढ़ रहे हैं rapid rates से because of the increase in climate change. As a result, health is also getting deteriorated because of and many other hazards. So क्लाइमेट एंड हेल्थ के बीच का नेक्सस को स्टडी करने के लिए फर्स्ट टाइम एक स्टेप लिया गया है अंडर COP28. नेक्स्ट इज रोल ऑफ नॉन स्टेट एक्टर्स. It is realized apart from the governmental efforts of various NGOs and civil society is also to be taken into account. As a result, non-state actors will also be considered. And the highlight is just transition. They want a transition from the fossil fuel based energy to a low carbon energy methods, where shift should be on the more renewable energy sources जो कि environment friendly हो. As a result, there has been talk about phase out of fossil fuels and all, and phase down. Why two words? Phase out for developed nation because they've already contributed and they're developed, and phase down means developing countries जो कि अभी develop हो रही हैं, they need to use these fossil fuels for development purpose, so they should cut down emission because they cannot cut off totally. As a result, phase down. Next is 2 weeks of COP28 climate summit will include global stock take. Now, this global stock state is a study about how much targets have been achieved and are these targets sufficient to fulfill a Paris climate agreement or not. It is a study on this. Now in this COP28 summit, this will be studied in detail because it has been understood that our targets haven't been met, and if we go on with this time, and if we go on with these same targets, we will not be able to achieve the Paris Agreement targets. So this will be in a deep study in this COP28. Now let's look into detail what are the various initiatives launched over in COP28. One is Climate Club. Now, when we talk about Climate Club, initially ये effort है G7 nations का. Yes, G7 nations took an initiative of launching a Climate Club, which has 36 members, and it aims to accelerate the technological groundwork for a standardized calculation of CO2. They wish to calculate कितनी CO2 emission होती है particular developmental process से, and we need to phase that out and cut down. As a result, a near zero emission होना चाहिए from the steel and cement plant, which are the sectors which emit most of the CO2. This step was taken up in COP27, but वहाँ पे finalize नहीं हो पाता. And finally, in COP28, it has been finally launched. But there is a big contention over it because when we talk about Climate Club, G7 countries ने launch किया है. Who are these countries? These are developed nations. They can easily form this Climate Club and phase out. But what about the developing nations? They are still not developed. How can they completely shift to this? So this is a bone of contention in the Climate Club. Next initiative which has been taken is a loss and damage fund. This was also in news and in talk in various COPs, and finally in COP28 it has been brought into effect. Now when we talk about various nations, Now when we talk about various nations, impact जो होता है is more visible on the poor nations which are incapable of dealing with those climate impacts. For example, small island developing nation, जो small island developing nations हैं, they are the most vulnerable nations. Climate impact आएगा, टेम्परेचर बढ़ेगा, फ्लडिंग बढ़ेगी, ऐसी चीजों का सबसे ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट किस पे होगा? छोटी कंट्रीज पे, विच आर द लो लाइंग एरियाज. सो दे विल बी द मोस्ट इम्पैक्टेड नेशन एज कंपेयर टू द डेवलप्ड नेशन. As a result, someone else is doing the bed, but someone else has to reap for it. This debate has led to the emergence of Loss and Damage Fund. The fund aims to provide financial assistance to the nations who need the most and are vulnerably impacted by the effect of climate change because they cannot themselves finance it. As a result, particular fund has been set aside for them to help them to deal with these. Also, the world is estimated to be $1.5 trillion poorer. Now, apart from this, some things have been lost ecologically. For example, we have lost some flora and fauna. In this way, similarly, out of many environmental impacts, बहुत सारा ecological loss हुआ है, which otherwise would have benefited us from the productivity. As a result, एक study में पाया गया that $1.5 trillion poor हो चुका है world because of this loss, and it has been decided to establish a fund to compensate for the same. But the problem here is that various countries are not upcoming for the fund. Very negligible amount of fund has been contributed. For example, some countries have contributed only 40 billion. Now 1.5 trillion, 40 billion. Such a big difference. So the climate fund has not met the target. Now this is a major problem. As a result, countries like France and Kenya have suggested a method, and it is international tax. They have said impose a international tax. As a result, obligatory हो जाएगा, mandatorily उनको pay करना पड़ेगा, and that payment can be transferred into the loss and damage fund. So this was also a major landmark in the COP28. Next was Altera Fund. Now what is this Altera Fund? When we talk about who has launched COP28, COP28 is hosted by United Arab Emirates. Now when we talk about these COP meetings, they are targeting fossil fuels से shift होकर renewable energy की तरफ से आओ. But here the paradox is Gulf countries की major economy इन्हीं चीजों से चलती है. As a result, United Arab Emirates was criticized by organizations like Greenpeace. Yes, Greenpeace जैसी organizations ने criticize किया है that United Arab Emirates, the person who is presiding over the meeting, is also the head of the major oil refinery over there. As a result, they have diplomatically said do not phase out but phase down, and they have also diplomatically marketed for fossil fuels. So this was criticized. As a result, to stop the criticism, one of the private fund has been launched by UAE, that is Altera Fund. Yes, United Arab Emirates is preparing to announce a new $30 billion का एक fund based on climate focused investment fund, and a special thing about this fund is that it is privately funded. Yes, various private organizations and entities can come and donate in this fund for the climatic purpose. And here this is how non-state actors like private entities are also involved for the climate friendly development. And here the world's biggest investor, including BlackRock, is also investing a major chunk in this Altera Fund. Another important initiative that has been taken is Green Credit Initiative. This initiative is taken by India. Yes, we have taken this initiative. Our Prime Minister Modi has taken this initiative. Earlier, it was launched in October 2023. Now, this has been materialized in the COP28, and it has been designed that there should be a market-based mechanism for carbon credits. Yes, carbon credits, you might be knowing, they are asking that carbon should be traded as a market commodity. For example, there are two companies, A and B. There's a particular norm about how much carbon emission should be there. For example, country B adopts environmental friendly methods and minimizes its emission. So they will be getting credit. Now this credit can work in two purposes. एक तो आपकी वैल्यू इंक्रीज हो रही है मार्केट में, दैट यू आर एनवायरमेंटल फ्रेंडली कंपनी, यू आर डोनेटिंग टुवर्ड्स द सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट, सो योर वैल्यू इंक्रीजेस. एंड अनदर बेनिफिट इज देयर. फॉर एग्जांपल, कंट्री बी कंट्री बी ने मैक्सिमम कैप तक इमिशन कर दिया है, नाउ इट वांट्स टू emit more, so it cannot emit more just like that. They will have to buy the credit and pay for it. As a result, company A sells these credit to company B. Okay, now when they will sell, company A को तो पैसे का फायदा हो रहा है, monetary benefit भी हुआ, plus value increased as an environmental friendly company. Now year B needs to invest money to emit more carbon. As a result, B को monetary loss हो रहा है. This way, A will be prompted and incentivized to do more of such methods, and B will be persuaded to cut down the emissions so that they do not have to make this monetary loss. Okay, so this is a market-based mechanism, and here the two important priorities are water conservation. वाटर पे कंजर्वेशन पे बात की गई है बिकॉज इंडिया के काफी सारे स्टेट्स वाटर डेफिशिएंट होने वाले हैं इन द नियर फ्यूचर, सो वाटर कंजर्वेशन इज अ मेन थीम हियर, plus the afforestation to make the hydrological cycle better. So this is an initiative of India which has been taken. Now let's talk about what are the challenges. For example, there are some of the challenges which India has been facing as a developing nation. First is cooling pledge. This pledge has been taken. Now it is argued cooling instruments like refrigerators, air conditioners, they emit a lot of CFCs and all which are very harmful for the environment. So a cooling pledge was taken to reduce them and make them more expensive. Now India is reportedly hesitant to sign this pledge because it aims to reduce the cooling related emission. But when we talk about India में maximum people are middle class people. They cannot afford ACs just like that. Therefore, it cannot be converted into a luxury good. And India is a country which faces extreme summer as well as winter. So these things are mandatory. Some of the basic needs. As a result, this cannot be signed and India easily cannot switch to alternative methods as they are costly and it is not feasible at this point of time, and we have not developed so much technology to shift to other sources. As a result, India is hesitating to join this cooling pledge. Next is luxury emission. Now India has been called to reduce the luxury emission. Now here luxury emission is also talking about the cooling pledge and also about the fossil fuel based emission. When we talk about fossil fuel based emission, India is trying to curb it, but it cannot eliminate it because India का 64% electricity generation and 64% dependence coal based है. Now we cannot shift this 64% directly to near neutral. That is why it will require huge technology and a great time to shift over the resources. This is a major challenge for India. Then is India's stance on emission reduction. India will not agree to any personal task that reduces its emission. Now, it was talked about that agriculture contributes around 15% to the methane emission. It is said that India should change its method of agriculture, but India में major chunk of the population, around 54% people are employed in agriculture. वहाँ से GDP उतना नहीं आता, but employment maximum लोगों का agriculture में है. How can India shift its phase in agriculture in such a short time, which is a major determinant of its economy and employment? So these are some of the challenges which India is facing under these conference of parties. Nonetheless, India cannot be criticized because India has taken n number of initiatives in the previous summits. For example, in the Glasgow summit, yes, Glasgow summit में India has taken a Panchamrit target. Panchamrit means 5 targets which India has committed to, and these were reaching 5,000 gigawatt non-fossil fuel energy capacity by 2030. India said that by 2030 it will try 500 gigawatt energy non-fossil fuels renewable based energy से आए. Another was sourcing 50% of its energy requirement. जितनी भी energy होगी उसका 50% renewable से ही निकालेगी by 2030. Means 2030 तक India is trying to shift maximum to the renewable sources. Another was reduction of total emission. जितना भी emission होता है उसका 1 billion tons reduce करेंगे by 2030. Then was reduction of carbon intensity of the economy of 45%. जितनी भी 2005 में emission होता था उससे 45% will reduce by 2030. And the last one was we will attain zero emission by 2070. Zero emission means जितना emission हो रहा है उतना ही carbon sinks create करना so that there is net neutrality. So India will achieve net neutrality by 2070. Apart from this, India has taken many initiatives when it comes to climate initiatives like International Solar Alliance. Yes, being a tropical country for use of solar energy, and this initiative was signed. Apart from this, if we talk about India, India is the only country which has performed the best and has pursued its intended nationally determined contribution. And definitely these Panchamrit targets in the near future will help India to go in consonance with the Paris Agreement targets. So that was all about COP28, which is currently being held in UAE. And there will be many upcoming agendas and issues which we'll be dealing in the further videos. Hope you like the video. Do like and comment. And for more such videos, subscribe to our channel IAS Origin. Thank you.